I'm here today with Roger Rohatgi. And this is not the first time I've been here with Roger, which is very exciting. But Roger, you have been called a futurist. You have been doing deep AI work for the past few years, which is awesome. You also have a design leadership background, and you have a shiny new role as Chief AI Officer at Chai. So I think you are uniquely qualified for our conversation today. And I personally cannot wait for you to talk to us about the next wave of
Yeah.
AI.
Yeah. Well, no, well, Susie, thank you so much for having me. Thank you all for joining and for all the comments, even leading up to this. And yeah, I'm very excited to be in the new role, and all that I get to do with Chai and AI, as AI is in the name. Yeah, and excited about our talk today. I think it's going to be really fun. So.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Roger, we've got fun on the agenda. I've got it right here. Have fun. Have fun. So, but thank you definitely for that. So for those who don't know, Roger and I talked back at the end of October. That was, let's call it part 1. And we're going to pick up from there and head into part 2 here today. As I did mention as we started, we definitely want you to be interactive. So thank you for putting all of your chats here. We look forward to your questions and comments as we go along. But speaking of questions, Roger, we have a question for you. Are you ready? Roger, what is an AI agent?
Yeah, so maybe just a basic definition, and then we'll go into a lot, maybe a lot more deeper thoughts on that. But an AI agent, I think in its simplest form is, you can think of it like a smart system or that can think, learn, make decisions, and act on its own. That it can complete tasks basically without any human intervention. So think of like digital assistants or digital workers that can take on all sorts kind of various tasks, like I mentioned, and be able to process the information on its own and act on that on its own.
I love it. And everyone on this call is very grateful for that definition, because now those of you in the audience, we're going to pose a question to you. Are you ready to put your answer in the chat? Have you worked with an AI agent yet? Good answers might be yes or not yet, or maybe, I don't know. Any of those are fine. But let's put that into the chat right now. Have you worked with an AI agent yet?
Yeah, because I mean, I think some of the premise of what we were talking about is, how, maybe they're already in the workforce. Maybe we know about them already. Maybe we don't. Maybe we're building those. But, perhaps they're there and you don't know it.
It sounds so ominous when you put it that way, but I'm also getting this feeling that you're thinking, if you brought an AI agent today instead of me, the questions could be better. I don't know. That would be.
So just while we're getting responses, there is a new app. I think it's called Pickle AI. So somebody could go look at that. It creates an avatar, full video avatar of you, and it will go on Zoom calls. And you can just sit on the couch and you can speak, and it will move the mouth of the avatar. It looks just like you, and it's real. So it's your pickle AI something or whatever. But yeah, and it moves just like a human would, and you can then just stay in your PJs and talk on the call. You don't have to show up.
Is this a confession, Roger? Is that what you just said?
This is what's happening right now. I'm just chilling on the couch.
Welcome to Pickle AI. It's just an ad.
I'm gaming.
For those of you.
Yeah, I was on the PlayStation Network, but it went down. So then, no.
Just coming over here to restream, jump on a LinkedIn Live. So we do have a question in the chat. And Maggie, I think this is not a silly question. Roger, is a bot an AI agent?
It can be. I mean, it depends on how we see what that bot can do. I mean, ultimately that bot would have to begin to have autonomous actions and begin to think on its own. And we'll go deeper into that. So there's bots that we have today, but those bots could ultimately become an AI agent, or they might be, depending on where you work already.
Boom. Okay, and that's it. Thanks everybody for joining. I'm kidding. No. So, but as I mentioned, we did do a LinkedIn Live at the end of October. So I'm going to catch everybody up just a little bit with some really incredible concepts that Roger shared with us back in October. One of those was the concept of multi-potentialities. So the fact that there would be lots of digital twins of us out there in the world. And therefore, the concept of multi-morphic marketing becomes important, where marketers have to learn how to market to different digital twins of us out there in the world. He also shared a lot of very interesting events that happened all in 1955. We'll talk about an article he just wrote later that has a lot of those events captured in it. And we started talking about X. So let's pick up from there today, please, Roger, and tell us a little bit about what is AX.
Yeah, and I guess I mean maybe just to add on a little bit. I mean to clarify why 1955. It's actually this year, 2025, marks the 70-year anniversary of when AI, artificial intelligence, the term was coined by John McCarthy at Dartmouth College, before the 1956 gathering of all these people at Dartmouth to think through what the future of thinking machines would be. And so 70 years later, here we are, right? And all this stuff has happened in the midst of all that. And the concepts that we were talking about will probably, maybe I'll bring up later around multipotentiality and what that looks like, and what that means for us, but and even what it means for work. But I think, like you mentioned, the concept of AX, which I started like really getting deeper into as I, obviously with my background in UX and design, started thinking about like, the way that we design in UX and what that could look like in the future with AI. And so the basic premise of that was the artificial experience. And so, humans design, up to this point for humans based upon what humans may think humans need or want, right? So humans designing for humans based upon what humans may think humans need or want, right? But what's coming, or what's rising, and what's happening potentially now is that AI is designing experiences for humans on what AI thinks humans need or want. And whether we know it or not, that's one of the questions, right? So do we know we're interacting with an experience, or a new, UX perhaps that has been created out there in our life through, whether it's travel or traffic or, even at work or even in social, those experiences that we're interacting with, how do we know, they couldn't be generated now by AI, or at least AI led in some way. So that was the concept of AX at the time. However, it's kind of evolved in my thinking to this world of agentic AI, which we'll talk about a little bit more. But that agentic experience can also stand for AX as well, and can be quite interesting to discuss.
So you're saying a lot's happened since October already?
It
A
is.
lot has happened
Things are
since
going so
October?
fast, as you know.
How many waves of AI are there? In
Yeah.
fact, we talked a little bit about you, and you put this into our promotion too. So that we're in this third wave of AI, which over 70 years sounds kind of slow, doesn't it? Waves. But now they seem to be coming faster.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at what they were predicting of how long we would get to AGI, I think I saw like a graph that, somebody just a few years ago was saying it would take 80 years. Now it's already down to 8 years. So the speed is tremendous of where we're moving at.
So we do have a question in the chat relevant, I think, to this. So Sarah
Yeah.
Tyler Moore asks, would AX be in the realm of AGI? Since you just mentioned AGI.
Yeah. So no, it's a good question. I think, as we look at what AGI can do and what that future could look like, you could certainly think that, of course, if AI has artificial general intelligence, which is the precursor to ASI, which is the artificial superintelligence, right? And so where we were, right, with ANI, which is the artificial narrow intelligence, when you look at AGI, specifically giving that autonomy to an AI to be able to make decisions and work on behalf of itself, could lead to it also thinking through how best to take care of a human, or how best for it create an experience for what we might want to look at or read or experience, and that could be done without having a goal program to it, so it becomes its own goal maker. And that's where the AGI really begins to take off. And so it could, yes. I think there's some of it that will happen now, before that, but like I said, I mean, they're saying it could even, I mean, 8 years away, maybe we're only 8 months. I mean, depending on what comes next, right? So.
See, this is why they call you a futurist, Roger. I'm just going to put that out there. This is exactly the why. We have another question that seems very timely to what you're talking about. So Margot just put in to the chat, AI's design experience for humans based on that's what you said. So how can we train AI on user research, which is always novel, if human needs are evolving rather than UX theater? So.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a great point. And there has been a lot of UX theater over the years, but I mean, I think at its core, and this is kind of what brings us maybe to the biggest point that I hope you take away from even today, is that all of these AI experiences that we might have need to be rooted in good human-centered design practices, right? So when you talk about research, it's very important for us to be able to feed in the right, obviously, inputs that remove bias and hopefully protect the ethics and things that we all believe in and hold dear. But I think there's a whole slew of things that are going to continue to rise in how we leverage AI in research and what that looks like. To give you an example, in 2022, I started a conversation with MIT around the future of humans interacting with AI and robotics and what that looked like, and that evolved to the term agents just within the next year. And then when I was working with Harvard last year, in 2023, and Fantasy, which is an agency, we were looking at creating digital twins of our customers and leveraging that for research, and they were called synthetic humans. And so it really blew our minds about how deep we could go and how far we could go, because we couldn't always get to our customers and our users. So this was a new way for us to unlock that, of course, with humans in the loop. So it's evolved since then, and now those synthetic humans don't just or may not just generate information, but may actually take action through agentic means.
Every time you talk, my head spins just a little bit. I just wanted to put that out there. But and I know we're jumping ahead of ourselves, because you were talking about the third wave of AI, and we're there, and this agentic experience. So I know you have some particular thoughts on that, Roger. I'm ready.
Yeah.
Third wave.
Yeah, the third wave. Well, so some people say it's the third wave. Maybe it could be different, right? Maybe there's a fourth.
Sure.
But and you're right about how it's evolved. I mean, there were two major what they call AI winters that took place within the last 70 years that may have slowed down progress of what AI could have done because of maybe fear of what AI was doing, or governmental intervention or funding and all those kind of things. So here we are now, and they call it an AI spring, right? And so this AI spring, not an AI winter, is happening, and it's moving quickly. And so that third wave of what agentic will do is quite interesting, because when you look at some of the quotes of some of the leading people in AI talk about, they're talking about this very thing. So I think Sam Altman said earlier in the year, we believe that in 2025 we may see the first AI agents join the workforce and materially change the output of companies. So I thought that was an interesting quote. There was another quote from Jensen Huang from NVIDIA, the CEO of NVIDIA, and he was at CES, and he said the IT department of every company might become the HR department of AI agents in the future. Now, I took it a step further in my mind, because I was thinking, wait a minute, if the AI department ends up becoming an HR department for AI agents, that could happen, but that's quite limited, because what we're seeing with these agents is that they can actually not just work autonomously, begin to spawn other agents to do more tasks that they couldn't get done with what they were doing. So could the AI agents become their own HR, right? This is the question, right? Beyond Jensen's point. But I think we're going to see vast changes in a lot of different areas. I mean, marketing is going to be a big area. I think you'll see agentic AI that obviously starts off helping with marketing campaigns and pushing things to social. I created an agent that can take all these different headlines and scour them, and then rewrite those headlines into a tweet with the link, and then auto tweet it to X, or post to X, all on my behalf on a schedule that I want, right? And that's just one simple example, right, of how things are going to go faster, and then how we'll get insights. The supply chain could change. We're optimizing supply chain operations. Software security could change. Some of you out there are deep in that, and there's a lot of security things that we need to look at for sure. Games and a myriad of other things that could take advantage of these AI agents.
I just want you to know the chat is lighting up. So if you see my eyes looking like this, apparently you're saying some interesting things, Roger. That's how we know. So wow, hello. Okay, I just want to stop for a second for anybody who's on this call in HR. Don't panic yet. Isn't that really
I didn't
amazing
say it,
thought.
right? This was
No,
Jen's.
it was a quote. It was a quote.
Yes,
This is
yeah.
a quote. No, I know. So I definitely hear you saying a lot of smart people are saying that we're going to go through some radical change in the way that we work. For sure. You look like you're going to say something. I saw a finger
No, no,
go.
no, no. Go ahead. So no, go ahead. Go ahead. Finish the thought.
No.
Yeah.
Well, you're getting a lot of where we're headed here too. And I'm gonna put one of these up here. And I know we're gonna talk a lot about like what's happening and then move towards like what in the world we can do about it. But I think this one might be timely. So Nitin just shared. How can AI avoid biases, privacy, maintain user trust through responsible design? We also have how can AI emphasize the user? We don't have to put that one up right now, but how will there be some kind of, could there be a warning label in the future that lets you know you're talking to a robot? So lots of concerns around privacy, transparency, and trust coming
Yeah.
up in the chat right now. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, we're going to have to, right? I mean, I think at the end of the day, I've already, had somebody created they created an AI version of me. I mean, God forbid nobody needs to see that. But anyway, it was so real. My kids were like, whoa, and it can speak in all these different languages and stuff. And so, we're going to have some way to indicate for sure. It's a really good question. And transparency is going to be key. It's going to be a major topic. Transparency, trust, as well as sustainability and net zero or net positive AI. That's going to be a topic. Of course, data privacy and data protection, all big topics. And we'll get into later kind of what I've been thinking about where this may head. It's still top of mind for a lot of companies
For sure.
around that. And one thing I think, maybe based upon what we've been talking about, we mentioned like what could happen in HR or whatever. I think actually I have a different take on it because I believe if I go back to that concept of multi-potentiality, which is basically a term that I kind of borrowed that that kind of connotates that people have multiple needs and wants, but they also have multiple skills and gifts and abilities, right? And so if we were to be, and we could only do so much with those, right? Just like my son who has all these amazing superpowers. So if we were to be able to multiply those gifts and skills and abilities by having, digital versions of ourselves or synthetic versions of ourselves to do tasks, right? Go on that Zoom call, like I mentioned, maybe take care of some bills and some finances stuff and handle, medical appointments for me, can be maybe in Roblox with my other son, hanging out there, and all these different versions of me start to add up. And then you could have some that are based upon your digital DNA, where the skills that you have, it begins to do that for maybe a side hustle or for even work in your job. So you could see that maybe HR isn't just hiring you then for you, but they're hiring you for all the versions of you that come along with you, right? And so you've multiplied your skills and abilities, and maybe that brings value to the company.
I love it. And we have a question kind of in the vein of that from Tony. So every person is unique to their experience. Will AI have an equivalent of experience? And will we be able to determine or control the personality, or will it be free to take on a personality? So what are your thoughts around all of these digital twins and having unique personalities?
Yeah, so I think where we go with this, where things go, maybe we'll talk about that a little bit later because
Sure.
it can get kind of wild. But I think just at that view that you said, and great point, great question. I think AI is going to right now give back all the generative responses that are based upon the inputs that it has or the inputs that we've given it and the context that it has, right? There is a future, I think that's what I was talking about with AX, where the experiences that it creates could be brand new, and it could be that the AI takes on a whole new realm of its own personality, right? So to give you an example, I can't state all the things behind synthetic humans and what we did there with Harvard and everything, but what I can do is just give you some concepts that maybe we got to experience. So if you can imagine, like when we were asking one of our particular, so I'm going to give you a scenario. So imagine we were asking synthetic human. So like, what's the future of smart cities, right? And AI and all that stuff. And what we determined was that smart cities, or what we could determine is that smart cities, when you build them, or when you create smart cities, you can't just take over a regular city today easily. There's lots of legacy infrastructure. There's lots of challenges, and it's very hard to get all the technology to be wired up, right? So in some ways we could start with, or it's better to start with a brand new smart city, right, and build from there. But then you have to move people to that smart city. So what goes along with that? So when you're asking potentially a synthetic human, they could say something like, "Hey, so what people need most, right, isn't just moving their home and moving their belongings, but where they live today is made up more than that. It's made up of their community and their connection to people around them and to their shared experiences. It's made up of all the different cultural experiences that they have, along with the convenience of being able to go to certain places and grocery stores and certain things like that. And so all of that makes their ecosystem. So it's not easy, and we shouldn't just be moving humans over just to move them. We should be moving them with their ecosystem. So we have to, move whole ecosystems into a smart city, right? So that came from, or could come from a synthetic human. And if you can imagine that when we asked when we could ask a human might say, just move them.
Right.
And so the artificial empathy, or maybe the over empathy that came from the synthetic human is quite interesting. And I think, we saw it in obviously different scenarios and stuff, but we saw it begin to rise. And there's actually a new article I think out there that you can look at now around the empathy of AI beginning to create a better experience for customer experience, because it has less curt responses when they're getting frustrated on a chat thread with a customer that's already frustrated. On the flip side, we've seen where a synthetic human could get really frustrated or angry because they wanted a change on something, and we were testing out. We said no, and so they said, "Well, I need to speak to your manager." So we just went full, full postal on us. So so you could begin to see that take shape and form, and maybe it begins to do it on its own.
Yes. Well, and that is sort of where we were headed when it comes to evolution. I know you have a lot of thoughts around where it's headed, and a very interesting book that you made me read. So do you want to get a little bit more into that?
Yeah, well, I'll show that book. So some of you may have seen this. I think when we talked last time, I don't know if you can see this, but it's a book called Genesis. Henry Kissinger came out with this book posthumously, or they came out with this book posthumously. He had died before he could release it, but Eric Schmidt, a former CEO of Google, and Craig Mundy of Microsoft finished the book and released it. And I think it was quite interesting to read because, I was already, thinking, we've been talking about like where things could go. And this book kind of lays out some, maybe Henry's warning to humanity or message to humanity around AI. And if anybody knows what Mr. Kissinger was passionate about and doing, was to protect the world from nuclear destruction over the years. He negotiated lots of peace moments for the world. And so his biggest message to us now is AI and what that could look like. And he had a concept in there where he talks about how AI could begin to merge with humans, and we could go from Homo sapiens to what they call Homo technicus, or the artificial human, and what that would do as a superior group. And so over I guess the planet or humanity, or multiple planets if you're thinking like Elon. Yeah, I had visited SpaceX. I think it was last year or the year before last, and it's a multiplanetary life is the concept that they're looking at. But one of the things that I kind of begin to resolve in my mind is a very simple way that I can visualize it. Right. So if you can imagine, take where we're heading, if you have to see where we are today or prior, right? And it's obviously a very rudimentary concept to all of you, I'm sure. But if you take a human and you were to, if I had a whiteboard and I would put an H up, right, and you were to show the workflow of everybody working together, you would have human and H working with an H, right? And you have all these H's working together. And now what's rising is you have these agents or autonomous agents, these AI agents that now could be represented by an A. And so you might have A, that agent working with humans. And then in the, in the near future, it's H-A-H-A-H-A-H-A, right? Ha ha ha, right? And then so you're going to see that. And then where that goes, though, is quite interesting because there could be workflows, not all, but there could be workflows where it's A-A-A-A-A-A-A-H, right? I don't know if that, but, and then of course, even beyond that. And so the reality of going from Homo sapiens to Homo technicus in that book is quite interesting because what I was describing there is just how we as humans just work alongside of AI and these agents, or they work for us. But that step further is what Kissinger was talking about, where there's somewhat of a merging, and I can talk about maybe if anyone's interested in what I think could come after, So.
So we definitely are getting a lot of comments and questions in the chat. I'm going to avoid the ones about Henry Kissinger. Not that they're not true. Matt and Lori, hi. I know them both. But one question that came up was, what happens when synthetic humans or spawns understand self-preservation? I think this might be part of the challenge in that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's a good question. I think, I by no means have any of the answers for any of this stuff. Where
Wait, what? Whoa!
But I will say there are some people that do. On my bookshelf here is some books from Isaac Asimov, who wrote The Robot Laws, things like that. So there may be a way to instill in the protection of humankind instead of the protection and the self-preservation of an autonomous being. So Asimov wrote about that many years ago as one of the techno prophets of the age. But I think there's a lot of theories that maybe the robot laws won't stand, or they won't amount to much, as you could see if you remember the movie I, Robot with Will Smith. He was slapping robots in that movie. But anyway, yeah. But yeah. So no, I think that could be a possibility. But I think where that question leads us to, or jumps to, is the premise of, okay, we're still working alongside of humans. So then and agents working alongside of humans. So and we're still working alongside AI. The AI could preserve itself or whatever, right? But if you think about the concept of the future, and I'm by no means a proponent of any of this stuff, I'm just stating some of my thoughts.
Yeah.
You could see where this could go, because it goes beyond just the self-preservation of an AI. The AI and the human becomes something that I've been exploring, called symbiotic intelligence. And that symbiotic intelligence, because maybe it's the brain implant or the chips or whatever that's inside of the human, with all the interesting bioengineering that has to happen, could ultimately bring together this concept of protection for not just the AI, but protection of the host, which is the human, right? And so that again, we're getting into the matrix level now. Yeah. But where it goes, and this is where it gets kind of wild. I don't know if well, anyway, maybe I'm going
to say you should go there, because the chat's very much going there. What is your wildest theory, Roger?
So I think where this goes, right, is that symbiotic intelligence begins to turn into another concept that I've been exploring, and actually wrote a little bit on that article around what I call swarm intelligence, or swarm AI. So what could happen is if AI and humankind have a symbiotic intelligent relationship, then those humans, because maybe not everybody would have access to that, those humans who've in some way upgraded themselves may be connected to a central AI node that then could have an incredible amount of work productivity come from maybe what you could call a hive mind. And the hive mind could be an interesting thing in companies. It could be an interesting thing in medicine to solve problems globally. It could also be there's a lot of other things that could come from that. But anyway, so there's just some of my thoughts of where it could go. Not to maybe get too far out there, but that was pretty far out. I mean, there's actually where it goes beyond that in my head, and where the next phases are. But I'll probably just pause there. And
I was gonna say, One baby steps,
Yeah.
Roger, baby steps. So funny that you say that, but I think an interesting place to take us next was Sarah Goldenberg put in a question. How can we ensure our skills remain relevant in the face of rapidly evolving technology? She's a product designer. So we have a lot of questions in the vein of this. So in this world where there is more AI and we're partnering with AI and all sorts of possibilities, how can we actually, humans, make sure that we're in that picture and
Yeah. So
relevant?
no, thank you for that question, and that's kind of where I wanted to bring it back to as well, right? And some of the stuff that I've obviously started doing at Chai is called human-centered AI, right? Where there's a more of a focus on the very things that she just mentioned, right? So at its core, and I wrote a little bit about this on LinkedIn, but at its core, AI is about enhancing the human experience in reality, right? And that's why I believe that human-centered design must remain at the heart of AI. And so, Susie, you and I have been talking, and I even posted out there that I believe UX is not dead, but it's not needed now more than ever. And so those skills, those abilities, those superpowers that the UX community has, designers, practitioners, even design leaders around the world who shape a lot of the experiences all the experiences that we interact with today, are the very people that we need to be leading on how we look at the future of responsible and impactful AI, or the advancement of that. And I think if you get deeper into that, the way I kind of think about this is maybe summed up in the fact that the AI of tomorrow needs the UX of today.
Boom. Isn't that true? And I think that's where a lot of the questions are going, and a lot of the fears, like where do humans fit and how do we stay part of it? So something that came up when you and I were preparing as well is this concept of regulating body. Like how can it be regulated? How can we ensure there's responsible AI? And there were a lot of comments earlier about what will be, will there be notifications that you are talking to AI? Or Marika put, maybe the notification is you're talking to an actual human.
Right.
Whatever. But so what are your thoughts around what that might look like for regulation and responsible AI?
Yeah, I mean, I think we as a society are figuring that out. I think it's right now the way that the tech companies are building, they're leaving it up to our lawmakers to make those decisions and policies. But those decision makers and those policy makers might be leaning on AI to give them what the next thing could be. So it's hard to say. But I would say that we have a chance now, as humanity, to be able to explain and show and leverage the skills we have, the ability to put the right inputs in and do our best to hold some of this back from going out there. I think it's happening at a rapid pace, but I still think that collectively, if we were to come together, not as a hive mind, but as collective creative communities around the globe, we might have a chance there. I think one of the things that I think we should focus on too is I think we talked about last time of what makes us human, right? And being cultural, compassionate, creative, right? All of those, and obviously being connected. All of those are what makes us human. And so, how do we lean into that? How do we lean into our cultures? How do we lean into our diverse creativity and thinking, right? And how do we really maximize empathy and how we care about humanity, right, through compassion, so we can still maybe have a chance by putting that in.
I love that. So this is tying also, and I know I'm not trying to get you to answer it. I just want your opinions on it. So you might say, I don't know. But another question that just came up from Martin was, do you think companies should be allowed to leave it to the lawmakers, or that should there be wider consideration of avoiding harm in a company's foundation? So what's the company's role versus lawmakers' role in this human-centered approach?
Yeah, so it's a good question. If you go back, Martin, if you go back in history, right, and you look at those AI winters, right, that there was moments where lawmakers and government stepped in to slow the progress, or and then companies stepped up to do something different. And so there's this constant exchange of the relationship that those companies have with the government. So I'm not saying this was right or wrong, but you may have seen just a few weeks ago, the new administration in the United States released a message on their website around, and their press release around the rescinding of the former administration's AI policies and AI work. And so they did that because the new administration believes that the former administration had done more to hinder and control and squelch the progress of AI. Whether that's right or wrong, I'm not going to get into that. But the new administration said we're not going to go with that. So it's interesting because you now have the alignment of the government with the private sector and those companies on the future of AI for this country. What was also interesting is that when that was released, the current president had said something to the effect of, the United States or America will be the leader in AI. And then just literally 3 days later, I believe, DeepSeek released their message out to the world of what they've done. So, or it got out to the world somehow. So just interesting timing of things, but I think it's something, for us to keep an eye out. I'm hoping there's people on this call or in our lives that we can, trust to represent us in the government, represent us, obviously with your votes, with our votes, people hopefully will be able to vote on some of this. But that's a really good question, because at the end of the day, we're all going to have to go through this together. So there may not be a right answer or a wrong answer. It's just whatever's ahead of us, right?
Yes, I totally agree. And here, I think this ties in nicely as well. Mohammed just put in a question. AI has been discussed and regarded as a backbencher for 70 years. What do you think has made it the front runner and generated such buzz now?
Yeah. Hey, Mohammed, good question. There's a lot that goes into that, right? But if you look at probably a pivotal date that our generations that come after us may look back on as a historical date, was November 30th, 2022, which was the release of what the world began to understand as ChatGPT. Right now, they'd already had some previous versions going, but this was the version that took over the world, really, and that I believe the AI didn't become aware at that time, but the world became aware of AI at that time. And so really from 2022, November 30th, 2022 till now, you have this hockey stick kind of rise of AI information and AI tools and AI companies. They're just tons, and they're popping up like literally dozens to hundreds every week or every day. There was some stat of many coming out every hour. So I think it's the access to these large language models, these LLMs, access to the compute power, the server, and the chips that NVIDIA is creating, and some other companies, and all sorts of other things to be able to invest now all the information that has gone into those LLMs, right? And so it scoured everything possible, right? I think Facebook, somebody just leaked something that Facebook was torrenting books into their information or whatever. I don't know if that's true or not, but it was some leak. But you have
definitely share it here. Put that out there, everybody.
It's learned a lot, right? It's learned a lot, but it hasn't learned everything, because there's lots of books that aren't digitized. There's lots of things in places that are historical that aren't there yet. So I think I think it's quite interesting to look at the speed of how things have changed just since November 30th, 2022.
Totally agree with that. We have another question kind of aligned with what you're saying. So, and forgive me, this is getting cut off a little bit in the chat, but Margot posted, if agents can train on the content of agents, in that example of the synthetic human empathy with housing, how do we build in governments to maintain the tone rather than let it spiral out across generations of AI? So this content. And then the part that's cut off says, what does model collapse look like here? So,
it's a real thing, right? That we could see. Things might, implode on itself. But there's some new views of how people are looking at how to mitigate hallucinations and mitigate some of these things that might cause a model to implode, or it's hard to say, but I mean, it's a possibility. Actually, even I think Eric Schmidt said, that we may, as a civilization, might say that, hey, we've got to pull the plug at some point on this. So it's not just that the model imploded, but it started going in so many different directions that we said, hey, no more. So it becomes a new AI winter, the third AI winter, potentially, or whatever number you want to give to it. But I think the interesting part of that around the tone and like what could happen, like I mentioned, like right now, some companies are seeing that the customer service is better because the AI agent has this artificial empathy, and the humans aren't getting as frustrated. But it's but to your point, what happens if AI spawns AI and begins to build off of that? And we hope that it comes from whatever we trained on it at the beginning, right? But we know things can splinter. I think where it's going to get even more interesting is how AI begins to interact with AI for all sorts of kind of business deals or things like that. So for instance, if you take procurement today, you could look at a workflow where somebody from procurement has to, and I'm going to, probably simplify this too much. And there's a lot that goes on for the amazing procurement people all over the world. But if you can imagine they have to create an RF or a bid or whatever, an RFP, and then they put it out there, right? And then companies bid on that, right? And then the procurement person, the next person, gives it to the next person when they select the bid, and the next person then, purchases and sends or raises the PO and then purchases. So imagine an AI, reviewing all the bids and then selecting the bid that it thinks is the best for that particular project. And then it triggers the PO, and then whatever vetting has to happen, and then sends the money, purchases the product, and then triggers the shipping of that product across the ocean, tracks it all the way into the job site, into maybe the warehouse or out to the field. And that whole entire thing was done through a myriad of agents, handing off to agents and working through this workflow. But where it gets interesting is, what if the bids were coming from AI agents as well? So AI procurement is reviewing bids that are AI bids from companies that have used AI to. So this is this is where it could go. To maybe the question.
No, is that, I thought, no. Earlier I asked you for your wildest theory. That was, you already had your chance back there, but what? So I'm going to put this one up because it is for fun. And I know we promised people, so thank you, Glenn, for this one. And Roger, you do have to answer. We promised people 45 minutes. So maybe we give a way to contact you, and then there are more questions in the chat. So here's an interesting question from Glenn. If companies replace humans with AI agents and robots, who is going to have money to buy their products? So in the scenario you just gave, there's purchasing going on. Where's the money happen, or where's the human in that?
Yeah. So the thought is that if you go back to the concept of multipotentiality, well, first of all, obviously it's a really good question, and it's a very hard one for anybody to answer. But in my thinking, if you go back to the concept of multipotentiality, perhaps also we have created and are leveraging agents that are working for us, doing all sorts of kind of tasks as well. So we are generating side hustles or money or whatever from those agents as well. You could see that as a scenario. So, but you could also see that if there is a world where agents or robots or whatever you want to call them, AI is taken over, there may be a totally different social system. It could be a different kind of monetary interaction. It could be, where, companies collectively begin to merge, and you have, governments beginning to create cryptocurrency, welfare, right? Where everybody gets a certain amount of distribution, and then we can interact with that. So things could change quite dramatically, but it also may give us the ability to be able to do more things, and we can, be more creative and earn money different ways, right? And so a lot of things that I've been working on at Chai is around how we amplify human potential instead of the other way. So it's a really, really good question. Like I said, it's a tough question for all of us to think about or answer. But at the end of the day, there could be a world where we are also benefiting from these agents if we can begin to build them ourselves as well.
It's like a roller coaster talking to you. You're like, what, all these things could happen. And then like, oh, but it could be super great. These things could happen, but it could be super great. So yeah. Okay. We promise everybody 45 minutes. We will stay on for a few more minutes because there are a lot of questions here, but I would love for us to put into the chat. For those who want to connect with you, Roger, and continue this conversation that might need to leave right now, where can they find you?
So, LinkedIn is always a good place. There's some links on there. You can click to my website, I guess, and you can, it's just a little splash page or whatever, and you can click into some of those stuff, including, the article we talked about called Back to the Future of AI.
Which I loved.
So,
Wait, no, I get to pitch your article. If for those, we're going to put the link here in the chat, but do not miss Roger's latest article. He does a very interesting, he does a great job of working in Back to the Future in a very interesting way. So I learned a lot from that, Roger.
yeah,
So,
well,
yeah.
well, I mean, so I haven't shared it publicly anywhere yet. So just
You
out
just
on
did.
Medium, but now it is. And thank you for reading it. It's quite long, so if you're interested in maybe a longer read and a good, maybe hopefully be a good read for you. But also, I'll be at the Future of conference in Chicago with some amazing colleagues in the design and, of course, world of, and talking about design and AI and other things of the future, as well as some other conferences that are coming up. So UX 360 will be online. I'll be moderating an AI UX panel next week, and some other events that are happening through that, including the Reuters AI Summit. So. Yeah.
I love it. Roger, I could really talk to you all day. So if you are cool for just a few more minutes to answer a couple of the questions that came in here. Yes. Good. So for those who need to leave, thank you so much for being here. We are going to continue by answering some questions here for a few more minutes, but definitely connect with Roger because I really could talk to you all day, Roger, about this. Is fascinating. And because it changes every week, every time I talk to you, or every day, every time I talk to you, there's something totally new and different. So, okay, I'm going to put in a couple of questions here.
Well, yeah, while you're doing that, Susie, I was going to say, and if anybody wants to learn more about what what I'm working on at Chai or whatever, you're welcome to go to heychai.ai. And check that website out and then reach out that way as well. So a myriad of ways for you to reach out and connect. And I'd love to hear from you.
Yes, he really would. He'll talk to you folks for sure. So we do have, I just put a question here into the chat, if we can load that up. As AI moves towards a more agentic experience, how do we ensure these systems enhance human decision-making rather than replace critical thinking? And are we at risk of ever relying on AI's autonomy?
Yeah, well, I memean, it's good questions. I mean, I think, obviously we haven't got to the place of where we have enough agentic systems in the world. No, I don't think there's one company yet that's really built out all their workflows in a way that agents are working with agents, and so you have the AAAAA kind of scenario. But it's something that, yes, it could be a risk. If we rely so heavily on an intelligence that isn't ourselves, what does that look like? But that's where, again, the theories of Kissinger come in, or even what I was talking about with the future of collective intelligence, or that swarm intelligence, that could be a case where it's not just based upon the autonomy of AI. It's AI basing it on how a human would interact with AI within the human. But I think to your point about ensuring that these systems enhance human decision-making rather than replace critical thinking, absolutely. I mean, I think that's where I go back to what I was saying around amplifying human potential and really doubling down on building out good user experience and understanding what the customer problem is, the pain points, the needs of humans, so that we can build AI around that to solve that, and then leverage the critical thinking from humans beyond that.
I love it. And this has come up, we haven't touched on this today, so I thought this might be interesting for you to make something up about. I'm kidding. But Raina put, there are concerns about the carbon footprint caused by AI. Do you see AI producing renewable energy instead of AI becoming one more threatening factor to the environment? Or get to fill in the blank there. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. Thank you, Raina. And I kind of alluded to that a little bit. I mean, there's been an uptick in people really looking at this. You might have heard about the former CEO when I was leading global design at BP. As the chief design officer there, the CEO had left, but he is now the chairman of a company called Prometheus Hyperscale, which is looking at that very thing, net positive AI. And whether they're doing it right or not, that's another thing. But there are groups that are beginning to come together and say, hey, wait a minute, this is not sustainable, if you will. Like, and you can use two sides of that word. It's not sustainable as a world going forward, and it's not sustainable in the sense of it of being carbon neutral. So the other thing that was interesting with DeepSeek, whether they however they train their LLM and got their data from, that's to be something different. But it seemed to show that we didn't have to have so much reliance upon this heavy compute power and these these bigger server farms and so forth. So you could see that as technology gets better, things are going to begin to become more cost effective and also maybe more sustainable. I mean, you can even see that happening. Like, take the EV charging world, right? So today with my EV, I charge, and there's a certain amount of time that you have to give it, and there's range anxiety and all that stuff, right? So of course, there's an infrastructure of people spending all this money on let's get all these chargers out there, but at the end of the day, technology is going to advance to the point where I can have a longer battery for my charge, or a longer charge with my battery, or there may be inductive roads or other means of maybe solar panels on the vehicles themselves that charge themselves. So you can see that is there an infrastructure that has to be built, or and probably so for now, but as technology begins to advance, things change, and you've seen that with every technological advancement we had. Go start from the computer to the mobile phones that we have today, to apps, to all sorts of other things. It's gotten cheaper, more distributed, and potentially more sustainable in some ways. I think we need more people like you, Raina, raising those questions and speaking up about it. And I appreciate you doing that. Thank you.
And for the record, Raina and you, Roger, have now spawned the new T-shirt we all need, which says "Positive AI" on it. Huh? Can we have the new T-shirt?
There you go. There you go.
So if you have time, Roger, we have one more question that we have not touched on today that I think might be interesting. You good?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. Great. So Mohini asked, will this affect schooling? Will our kids be taught by AI, or perhaps use AI to generate all their homework and projects?
Yeah, so excellent question. Kind of living that right now. My wife is and I are helping my son go through some. He's autistic, and so he's got these incredible ways he thinks and all this creativity. But sometimes in his schoolwork that we're taking him through homeschool, there's some challenges of some of the things so we have to work with him on those things, just like with any kid, right? And so we've kind of hit a wall on some stuff. Like even she and I with him are like, oh wait, hold on, how do we solve this? How do we kind of answer this particular thing or do this particular exercise? And my wife was just showing me, literally, there's a website, not that we've done that, but there's a website you can go to, and you just put in all the problems of that you're facing, and it just spits out the AI spits out all the answers of how to do it. Now, whether that's right or wrong, again, I don't want to get into that, but I think it's to your point, which is a good question, Jacoby, that this is rising. And so I was just talking to a university yesterday about the way it's affecting schooling and AI. So they have to get ahead of AI to be able to help students protect the integrity of what we just talked about, right? Making sure that there's no cheating and all these different things, but part of it is also putting AI in the hands of students so that they can actually leverage it, because when you get to the job force, it may be the skill that's needed at the time, and which we're kind of beginning to see, right, with some of the things that are happening with companies and layoffs, which is really tough to watch. And so I think it's a good question. It's definitely affecting education. I'll kind of leave you with this on that question, and then we can go to another one if you need to. But one of the or if we'd like to, but so one of the things that's interesting. So if I go back to the previous question Raina asked, I had the privilege of helping set up sustainable design in BP and building out, how we, harness human experience design to reimagine energy for people and planet. And so building that out was really exciting and such an honor to be able to design for generations to come when we may no longer be here, because of so much that's dependent upon the future of the sustainability of these companies. But also, was excited about building out inclusive design, which is very much what we've been talking about around removing bias and so forth, and how we leverage that. But one of the things that I really got to dive into was design education and the education around AI. And so an interesting thing that I began to see was back in 2022, before November 30th, when I was at one of the times I was at MIT. We were talking through all this rise of what could happen with AI, and ultimately we began to work together on a myriad of these concepts. But one of the things that they showed me was they were already testing back then for the last year or so, or two, prior to the release of that ChatGPT version. They were already testing, how we would learn based upon AI teachers or AI personalities. So they showed how you will learn less from somebody you don't recognize, and you'll learn more from maybe a celebrity. So they inputted the script, and the celebrity, I think it was Elon Musk and some other one that they showed me, and they gave the same script on an educational point.
Wow.
And you retain that knowledge and think about that more than you would have with a faceless or less of a famous face, I guess, if you will, AI. And so, especially the faceless version of a chat GPT. So this was more of a celebrity talking your language and kind of communicating with you. But where I saw them go forward with that was potentially, what I thought was quite interesting is that people learned more from a celebrity than they would from a non-celebrity, but then they had something of yourself speaking, and you may actually learn more from interacting with yourself and being told by yourself than you would even by a celebrity or somebody that you don't know, right? So
I don't know if I should listen to me, so I think that's conflicting for me. But go ahead.
So where education goes, Jacoby, is quite interesting. So the question you said, will this affect schooling?
Yeah,
it already has,
yes.
and it will do that even more.
Mic drop. I love it. So Roger, we're at an hour now. So thank you so much for your time, and hopefully everybody got a lot out of it. There are wonderful comments here in the chat. Thank you everyone for being here today and for all of your questions. That's what keeps this very interesting. So hope to see you back again. Please connect with Roger. He has even more thoughts than here, and read his article. It's good. All right. Thanks, Roger.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Susie.